thinking back on last year, Esther Bezanson's going to come up and share a little bit of what God spoke to her and used through her when she was in Honduras last summer. And I can honestly say that one of the highlights for me when I was in Honduras was watching what God was doing through Esther. She really changed a lot spiritually, and I saw a whole different side of Esther than I ever saw before. So take a few minutes and hear what she has to tell you about her adventure in Honduras.
Wow, that's a lot of pressure. So last summer I went to Honduras for 3 weeks. It was my second time going. And my dad said that if I got pictures, you wouldn't look at me, you would look at the pictures. So look at the pictures. A while back, Rob had a sermon talking about how when we are doing what we're put on this earth for, we are the most happy. And he talked about that we are made for mission. And so when we're doing that, we're doing what we're best. We're happy, we're all that good stuff. So this is something I really experienced when I was on this trip. I struggle a lot with anxiety and overthinking, so I have a lot of fears and worries. And when it came to flying over 3,000 miles across the world without my parents into a place infested with sickness and stuff, I had a lot of fears. But once I got into Honduras, it was like I would come face to face with things I was worried about, and then I would remember, hey, aren't I supposed to be freaking out right now? And it didn't bother me. And one project where I felt like I was being used by God was the Feeding Center, which is like a daycare for kids who are sponsored. They learn about God and interact with other children and receive 1 meal a day. And it was just amazing because it was so easy to make them smile, and they were so eager to just receive hugs and attention and every last bit of your energy. And so, yeah, it was just really cool to make these little kids so happy by just, you couldn't even speak to them because the language is different, but just like smiling at them and giving them a hug, and they're just so happy, so eager to learn, and it was just really amazing. So if any of you are considering going on the trip in 2017, I would highly recommend it because it is a life-changing experience.
Glad that you are here. Is the mic on? Thanks. Well, we want to start this new year with a new series, and still not coming through? Check. I'm on. I have to see. Well, how's that? There we go. Okay, thanks. Let's start again. Hi. Actually, I think I want to grab one of those coffee pots and just hug it while I'm up here. Dave's right. It has never been this cold, I don't think, in the whole 10 years we've been here. But just huddle close to each other, and, you know. We want to start this year with a series asking the question, is God really out there? This is a question that at some point in your life you ask. Even if you are the most faithful, convinced person, at some point you just think, is this really all true? Is God really out there? And the answer to that question has incredible implications. In fact, it changes everything about what you understand about life and how you approach life in this world. If God is there, then that has certain ramifications. If God isn't there, then that has different implications. And so we want to start thinking it through, and because really what it ultimately addresses is who you are at the core of your being. The question about God comes right back down to you as far as who are you? And what is it that gives you value and gives you worth as a person? Now, what we're going to do over these next weeks is we're going to just keep taking a different evidence for the presence of God, and we're just going to keep building and building, getting stronger and stronger and stronger. The one thing I do want you to understand is I'm not here to prove anything. That's not really the goal of this series. In fact, there's a misconception about science out there. That people will say, well, science proves something. You know what's interesting is that science never, ever proves anything. In fact, that's completely contrary to the nature of science. Science by nature always questions everything, every statement. It's constantly questioning and reevaluating, reassessing. That's the nature of science. What science is a set of theories based on how they're perceiving evidence up to that point in time. But science will always say at some given point in time we might have another piece of evidence that will change our conclusions or change our theory. And so that science by nature is never convinced of anything. It's always questioning, always reevaluating, always reassessing. And as a result, we've had science change its opinion on things continuously through all the centuries. Science has never been really static. And in fact, because science is just an observation tool, it gets a little confused at times. So for instance, when Jesus comes and he claims to have changed water into wine, or when Jesus walks on water, or when Jesus raises the dead, that throws science for a few loops because saying, well, how is that possible? We don't have enough evidence we can evaluate on that, and yet here's this claim over here, and what do we do with that? But I at least want you to understand that science never seeks to prove anything. All it's simply saying is, in light of the evidence, here's the evidence that seems to support this theory. But we're never completely sure that theory is 100% accurate because we never have all the information. And so scientists keep constantly looking for the information, the evidence. So even when it comes to what we're doing here, my goal isn't so much to prove anything, and I really don't want to so much get into the science side of things. There is a lot of evidence to look at there. In fact, if you are interested, there are two authors who started out as skeptics. One is Josh McDowell, the other one is Lee Strobel. Both of them started out as skeptics who wanted to prove that Christianity was false. And they were going to do it from a legal mindset. Josh McDowell had his one approach. Lee Strobel was a journalist who covered legal cases. And so both of them decided, I'm going to prove Christianity wrong. And they started on a journey. And at the end of the journey, they both became committed followers of Jesus Christ. And what they did as a result was they wrote down why. And they wrote these books. So Josh McDowell has books, for instance, More Than a Carpenter, or a series of books called Evidence That Demands a Verdict. And Lee Strobel has his whole series of Case for Faith, Case for Christ, Case for the Creator, Case for... All these books are there. And if you want to pursue some of that stuff, go to Amazon, pick up a copy of those books and pursue them. If you want the really in-depth looking at the evidence of science in support of the existence of God. Good stuff. It is good reading. My goal here, though, isn't so much to prove anything. My goal here is that I want to introduce you to the person of God. That's the most convincing, isn't it? If I told you about this incredibly wonderful wife that I have, and I told you all about her, and you just thought, she just sounds too good to be true. And so you start to question, do I really have a wife? Well, ultimately, the most convincing thing I could do for you is to introduce you to my wife, Julie. I would take you down to the kids' bridge. I'd call her over. I'd introduce you. And if some of you are questioning whether I truly have a wife or not, I can do that for you after the service today. Because I do have this incredibly wonderful wife. And if you think she's too good to be true, well, let me introduce her to you. So really what my goal here in these next few weeks is not so much just to give you evidence per se, because evidence is just evidence. It's valuable. But more importantly is if you could actually encounter the person of God through what we're doing here. And I hope that's what we can do here. Because as you encounter God personally, that's when we discover it can radically change your life. And we have stories here of lives that have been radically changed by Jesus Christ. Not because they just discovered things about him, but because they actually met him. That's two completely different things. And the other purpose for this series is most of you are convinced that God is there, but what we want to do is we want to equip you for the reasons for your faith. And we want you to be able to explain it to others as you get into dialogues with others about, is God really there? And you can just share from your heart what you see to be true. And so we just want you to be equipped for that. And so that's our goal. And I just want you thinking through, how would you explain the existence of God? Why do you believe God is real? And you can have that going through your mind. I'm just going to invite the worship band to come back up and lead us in a few songs.